Back with us on episode 8 of the Frisky Risky podcast. Of course, in the house, we have Willie P and myself, Tyler Z, to talk about all things sports. Today, with a focus on NFL. We got the NFL draft coming up and NBA playoffs. And of course, all the bets, your frisky bets, your risky bets from the legend himself, Willie P. But Will, I want to get started with something a little bit different. Some news out of your team's camp, the Denver Broncos. New quarterback, dude. I know you just spent, some time with the Russell Wilson, time frame here, but now you got a new quarterback in Zach Wilson, dude. And could this be the change that Denver needed? Is Zach Wilson the savior for the Denver Broncos, man?
I just don't know what to do with this team anymore. I mean, I haven't since we signed Russell Wilson to that major contract, and you can find my sources of this train of thought in my first ever article I wrote for you guys about a year ago now. And it is, man, I don't know. I was at having a long day already the other day when they announced it, and then I saw that news, and I was like, what is going on? So, and but it's not surprising. This front office seems to make incompetent move after incompetent move. I mean, I'm just curious to see if we still take a guy, because I've been looking at draft lines for the past 2 days, and everybody still thinks we're going to take Bo Nix. On FanDuel, there's a special line category that says team to draft Bo Nix, and we're right at the top of it and have been the whole time. So I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, obviously Jared Stidham isn't the answer as well, but I mean, I'm just glad we didn't give up a million draft picks that we didn't have to get Zach Wilson. I mean, we gave up like a 6th-round pick, so I'll take it. But I mean, maybe he's a good fill-in for the season.
Dude, this is like when um, Jerry Jones came on after I forget who it was, got like another excessive speeding ticket, and he had dropped like 6 miles an hour or 3 miles an hour, and he's like, well, we're getting better. It's like, this is the first time you gave up a ton of money and a bunch of draft picks. This time though, maybe the caliber is still not where we want it, but hey, less draft picks, so we got to
That's
find
literally
a
the first thing I
lining.
said to my coworkers. I was like, what did we give up? That's all I cared about. I was like, sweet, we got this guy, whatever. What did we give up? Because we don't have much to give up anyway. And I was like, maybe we gave up the one first rounder we have this year, and I wouldn't have been surprised.
Oh
But
my god, that would have
yeah,
been
I
brutal.
mean, we'll see. I mean, at least now we got 3 guys in the QB room: Zach Wilson, Jared Stidham, and Ben DiNucci. So I kind of hope DiNucci just comes out of nowhere in training camp and just somehow
Hey, sometimes it works like
jumps.
that, dude. You never know.
Dude, you never know. That'd be crazy going from the starting quarterback of the Seattle Sea Dragons to the Denver Broncos in a span of 2 seasons would be pretty crazy.
Yeah,
So,
man, you should just bring in AJ McCarron, dude.
oh my god, yeah, that would be sweet. That poor guy. I mean, he never really got a chance, but I also.
Well, speaking of the NFL
But
draft, though, we have that starting tomorrow. So a lot of people very excited. Round one, there's been a lot of talk going around um, on a number of topics this year. I feel like we had a great free agency, and now we're going to have a fantastic draft where we can have some record-setting things happen, including maybe most offensive players taken in the first round. We are very close to that number just based on the news coming out of all the different camps. So that could be exciting. Um, Obviously, the number one pick is not that exciting, even though they haven't, said they're not going to announce it until Thursday. Which, before we get started, really, can we talk about real quickly the first team to draft always putting everyone through like a full 10 minutes when you know who they're going to draft? That may be just the most obnoxious part of the NFL draft. We all know who you're going to take. Why are you taking so long to make that pick? Like it's just that every single year that pisses me off. And I know it's only
I
10
feel
minutes, but it just pisses me off.
no, and you're right, and I feel like it's gotta have something to do with, obviously the team that has the first pick every year is normally the shittiest team in the league,
Yeah.
and so I feel like they're trying to, like, play this little game of like, oh, we're not as bad as our picks say or whatever or our record the previous year. Like we do put time and thought into this. It's like, well, you don't need to put time and thought into this.
Yeah.
If you, like we all, like, you can't even bet on Caleb Williams to be the number one pick. It's that much. Like they know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Vegas won't even give you the option. So he's like minus 20,000 or something, as he should be. But yeah, the fact that number two, Washington's like, I don't know, are we taking Jaden Daniels? Are we taking Drake May? What are we doing? Like that, I totally get. But like, yeah, when it's every year, normally, I feel like we haven't had a dispute on who's going to be number one in a while, and
No.
it's just like they do it in the NBA draft, and it's like just take the dude, just take
Well,
him.
because
You've already talked to him.
you know who's going to fit that scheme. I mean, last year was probably the first with I guess last year there was a little bit of a right with Bryce Young. Um, a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
a lot of people didn't really think he should be number one or over and you know with a grain of salt. I mean, obviously CJ Stroud went off this past year and proved
mhm,
that maybe he should have been the number one, but also Bryce Young. I still am holding out hope for Bryce Young as a Bama alum, a little bit biased, but holding out hope because he didn't have an offensive line. I mean, they couldn't do
he didn't have
shit.
much at
I mean, they
all.
were terrible, that offensive line. So
Yeah,
you got to have someone to block for you if, if you want to make passes downfield. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully North Carolina can fix that problem with this upcoming draft. But I think we all know it's going to be Caleb Williams, number one, to the Bears. So essentially there goes his career. And then the next pick is, where we get a little bit iffy. It looks like Washington is leaning from everything I've read and seen towards Jaden Daniels. I don't know if that's what you've seen as well, but that's what it
yeah,
looks like to
definitely.
me. And then the Pats may take May, or they could trade. They did say they've been open to trading and trading down some. I know they've looked at Michael Penix, so he's an option for them. Of course, JJ McCarthy is up on that board, depending on what happens in the couple of picks after that. I don't think New England will want to trade down further than sixth with the Giants, just
Mhm.
because they still do need a QB. But um, they could, I guess, because if they're open to Penix, it could go a little bit. It could definitely go farther
They can
down.
wait. Yeah, I mean, Penix isn't gonna. He's not gonna go in the first 15. So
Yeah,
I
but if
mean,
they
they
think
have that.
JJ McCarthy's the one, then they're going to have to be careful how deep they
They
go.
gotta go, which
So
is crazy. But
yeah. So I don't know what you've been seeing, but that's kind of where I'm. And then obviously Arizona, they're between Marvin Harrison Jr. probably, or um, Neighbors, right, from LSU, or they could trade as well if they think that it's not a massive priority or they can get Neighbors or someone a little bit farther down. So it'll be interesting to see. But what have you been hearing?
yeah, I mean, the everything that you've been saying, I would be pretty surprised if Malik Neighbors got picked as the first wide receiver, just from what Vegas is showing with their odds, and also just everybody's talked about. I mean, everybody's talked about them both, but kind of it seems like Marvin Harrison has been cut from a different cloth, and it seems like most people agree with that when you say that. So, I mean, Marvin Harrison is minus 1,500 to go number one overall. That's why I'm like, it'd be crazy if Malik Neighbors went first overall as a wide receiver. I think he'll be the second off the board, and so does Vegas. And um, it looks like at least based off the odds, you can on certain sports books you can look at you can bet by each pick. And from what I was looking at odds wise, it looks like Neighbors is going to probably fall around 8 or 9, maybe 7. Um, maybe 6, but it seems like he's going to be definitely the number 2 wide receiver off the board. But yeah, I mean, just to get into it, I got like 6 bets for the draft that I was looking at the past 2 nights, and what I like. I know we still got a day, so this I'm going to start with this one because this is my risky one because it's a little bit of a future. It's an exact top 5 in order. You already know Caleb Williams won. I like Jaden Daniels at 2. It just seems like the Commanders, from what I've seen and what Vegas is giving out odds wise, obviously we have a whole day where this could fluctuate, and it's the NFL draft, so it might. And the chances are good that it might. But I got Daniels at 2, Drake May at 3, Marvin Harrison at 4, and then the big one that I think is going to make or break this bet is JJ McCarthy to go 5.
Oh, okay.
I don't want him to go 5, but I've just been seeing too many things, and his draft stock has been and odds have been moving like the the wind, and it is incredible to see. So again, I don't know who his agent is, but that dude needs a raise because
Well, it
he
seems
is going to be agent of the year.
seems like his agent is freaking Harbaugh currently. Every time he
Yeah.
comes out and says something about him, his draft stock changes. But so you're thinking Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May to the Pats, or it doesn't matter. You think even if they trade, someone's going to trade up to take Drake May in
Yeah,
third,
yeah, this is just pure order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
and then
And
Harrison,
yeah,
and
so
then
Drake May.
do you think the Chargers in your thinking about that bet though, do you think the Chargers stay at 5 and take him? Or do you think they trade with someone who needs a QB like the Raiders or, someone in that boat who comes up and takes JJ McCarthy?
I think I don't know if I mean the Chargers don't need a quarterback. Obviously, they have Justin Herbert. There's this
Obviously, yeah.
narrative that's been going around about JJ McCarthy reuniting with Jim Harbaugh in LA, and we were talking about it before the show about how Herbert might get traded to the Vikings and all this crazy stuff. And I was like, I just don't. That logically doesn't make sense to me. I'd much rather have a more proven and been in the league with experience Justin Herbert than a raw JJ McCarthy, who we've talked about it in previous episodes, but I don't think he's going to be the real deal and what all these NFL execs seem to think, given that he doesn't throw the ball and what every other thing that you could list about him. But I have a strong feeling that the Vikings are going to move up to 5. It seems like they really like McCarthy. They want him. They need a quarterback. So that's why I think he's going to go 5. But yeah, and this is the for to get all 5 of these right and get hit this bet, it's plus 470. So I took it as well because there's some juice in it. That's why it's kind of my risky. It's a picking the first 5 picks in a row is tough. But I saw that it caught my eye, and just from the news that we've heard around the league, it seems to I like it a lot, and I've already taken it, so that's how confident I feel in it. And just moving into the next kind of picks, my next kind of big ones. I got 2 Brock Bowers bets, and they're pretty codependent on each other. So if one doesn't hit, we're kind of screwed
I
on the
like
other one.
I
But
like that because I wanted to bring up Brock Bowers because I'm interested to hear your thoughts on him because a few things going around. So give me your bets and then we'll talk about him.
My first one is I like Bowers mainly because of the value. It's not crazy, crazy value like that first bet with at plus 470, but it's plus 105. Him to go be a top 10 pick, I just don't. He has so much talent. I like him to go in the top 10, probably near 10 or 9. I could see the Bears maybe taking him at 9, but I also think the Bears might take Odunza. Not purely just because of that tweet that he had yesterday about how they were on the same, him and Caleb Williams were on the same flight. But I like Brock Bowers to be a top 10 pick at plus 105. And I also like Brock Bowers to go, the total number of picks before he gets picked is the line is set at 11 and a half. I like him to go under that and go in the top 10. So, or at least in the top 11. So, kind of saving ourselves there. Maybe he doesn't go 10, maybe he goes 11. We still hit at least 1 out of 2. But yeah,
I
I like
don't
Brock Bowers to be a high.
I 100% agree with that. I think he's too much of a talent and has showed how good he is in college to not go top 10. Obviously, there's a little bit of fit stuff that has to happen. There's some teams who just don't need a tight end. So
Mhm.
they have to fill those gaps, which is, I think, really why that line is set as high as it is, obviously. Because there's no doubt that there are going to be some guys that go before him that don't necessarily, obviously not at the tight end position, but at other positions that aren't the NFL ready talent that he is.
Mhm.
But they just fill
Mhm.
positions better that those teams need. But even if he doesn't go 9, like you were saying, I think the Jets will take him at 10. I
Yeah.
think they are after last year's meltdown where they thought they had Rodgers and then his injury. I think the Jets, especially this year, with the Pats rebuilding, the Bills just no one even knows what's going on with the Bills right now. I mean, with their receiving core and their defense that they just gave everyone up. This is the Jets' year to really make a push
Hmm.
for the playoffs
Hmm.
and try to go deep into the playoffs if they want, because that AFC East uh, outside of Miami is looking to struggle a little bit. So if they get Rodgers back, I
Hmm.
think they'll give him every opportunity to give him targets, and I think Brock Bowers will go to the Jets if he doesn't go to the Bears before that. So I think that's a good bet. I like that. I'd put that down.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. And again, I don't. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to play for another 5 years. I would be shocked if he did. But you're trying to keep that man around. He left a great thing he had going there, and he wanted to leave Green Bay. We know the whole narrative, whatever. But again, he's a ticking time bomb in terms of how long he's going to be on your roster, and you're paying him a lot of money. And by bringing in a guy like Brock Bowers, another massive target, it's huge. And you know that I'm sure Aaron Rodgers is in the Jets GM's ear and front office, and he has obviously some pull in that organization as he should. And again, yeah, I don't know why the Jets would go kind of anywhere else. I mean, especially if he's on the board. That's what's crazy about the draft is you see all these experts and guys like talking heads talking about the draft and where we think guys are going to go, and all these things make sense, and then sometimes it gets screwed up just because there's at the end of the day, if there's a guy on the board like Brock Bowers where he's at, sometimes you just got to take the talent. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I mean. The Jets need a tight end. Tyler Conklin isn't the answer, but at the end of the day, too, like it's if Brock Bowers was on the board at 12 for the Denver Broncos, I would take him in a heartbeat. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's just he's a different kind of guy, and everybody was saying this about Kyle Pitts. And I'm curious to see if Kyle Pitts will kind of finally wake up this year with Kirk Cousins. We'll see,
Well,
but
yeah, now that he's got a
that's
quarterback and a coach who,
yeah,
not that Kyle Pitts didn't
actually
get
might get him the
targets,
ball.
but, yeah, no, I agree, and, I mean, the Broncos need someone for Zach Wilson to throw the ball to, so, you know
I know we don't have Jerry Judy anymore. It's crazy, dude. I mean, man.
We'll see what
But
happens tomorrow with
that's how
Sutton.
it goes. Speaking of tight ends, this is the next great little segue into another one of my bets. I love that. I've never been able to be in a state until this year that has had all of these lines because I used to live in Montana and the sports betting is very archaic there, just like the whole state. They're 25 years behind everyone, and even in sports betting. And anyway, the next line I really like is you can pick the position of Mr. Irrelevant. So this is kind of another future bet just because you got to wait till Saturday at the end of the draft. But something a little to keep your eye on, keep your eye interested when you're looking at day 3 of the draft. But um, I went I went through every Mr. Irrelevant pick since 1976. We had a tie between tight end and wide receiver at 8. Pure, and this is I'll be honest with you, it was purely based off the value, but I'm going with a tight end to be Mr. Irrelevant at plus 1,600. Wide receiver was like plus 500. The favorite is like a D end edge rusher. It's who got taken last year. It's like plus 380. I was liking that, and I was like, that's too obvious. Like, never always take the favorite. So, it's pure value. Um, there's some good tight ends in this class. This is kind of just a miscellaneous fun bet. It's like betting on the coin flip for the Super Bowl or the Gatorade color. But I saw this and I was like, I have to bring this up. This is just too fun, especially after pretty much day 2 is kind of when I check out, and I'll get updates about the Broncos or whoever, whatever I want to see of like who they pick. But I don't know enough of all of these guys in this draft to be like, oh, that guy's really gonna come in, and I gotta wait and see and kind of look at some tape and whatever. But to keep it fun and interesting on the last day, tight end gonna be Mr. Irrelevant plus 1,600. Book it. Second worst odds, but it's a Mr. Irrelevant for a reason, and it's an irrelevant pick, and we're taking it at the value. So
Hey, we're
give me
frisky
that for
risky,
tight
that's
end.
risky.
Yeah, it's big risky for sure, but we love it. So that's what it's all about. And when it hits, it's going to be a great thing to do on a Saturday when everybody's like, "Why are you cheering?" Be like, "Hi, because I just picked Mr. Irrelevant. Why wouldn't you be cheering?" So But and then my next kind of big one, I've been the running backs in this year's draft have been solid, and there's kind of a jockeying at the top three of who's going to go first. Right now, it's Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. He's kind of even money at -113. The next is Trey Benson from Florida State, and then obviously the national champion and the bulldog of a running back, and Blake Corum is the third best odds at +500. Um, I'd like Jonathan Brooks. I know, again, I don't like to always bet the favorite. I like him. He had a good year at Texas, but he is coming off an ACL injury in November,
Yeah.
so that makes me a little worried about what I don't know. That just never strikes a good chord in my heart when I hear, especially fresh ACL injury, and he's still rehabbing and doing all that stuff. And I saw yesterday that he's said his timeline's kind of training camp, so obviously that can get delayed or maybe pushed forward. I'm not the doctor, you are, so you could maybe speak into coming freshly off an ACL injury for a running back, but um, yeah, I kind of like Trey Benson to go as the first running back off the board purely because of that ACL injury that really just kind of skewed my perspective on Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, so interesting, because when you look at running backs coming from back from ACL, generally their first year back is not fantastic. They usually go
Hmm.
down. Obviously, we don't have a pre NFL on Brooks because he's not in the NFL yet. But generally, what happens is they go down about a year. Everything's down: rushing yards, touchdowns, all of that. And then their second year, they actually come back better a lot of times. So it's
Sure.
than they were even pre-level. So it's kind of it's an interesting, what we see in the data is pretty interesting. But you have to remember recency bias, and Brees Hall has now made it where people kind of like the Adrian Peterson effect when he did it. Brees Hall came back from an ACL and went off, right? Like
True. Yeah.
unbelievable
Yeah.
this year after his ACL. So people don't remember a lot of times the data. Instead, they go, "Well, did you see Brees Hall? He came back and just went off." It's like Brees Hall is one of those freak athletes who has been able to do that. Every running back is not like that. Even strong running backs, even like good athletes, don't come back from injury the same. And we saw it. I don't know if you saw the quote from Penix when they were talking all about his
Hmm.
injuries, and he was like, "I'm happy I've had injuries." He's like, "Every injury I've had 3 injuries that they said were like career ending and I've come back better." Like he does have a point in that. Now, also I don't know if you saw it, but the last line of what he wrote was or said was, dude, hard as fuck, dude. He was like,
Was he like? He's like, if you anything you need to know, you need to
"In my
do an
EKG,
EKG.
dude." I was like, "Yo,
Yeah, I did
that's
see that.
sick."
I'm like, God,
I was like, "This guy's gonna run through a wall." But,
yeah. It's like you
um,
can do a CAT scan, you can do an MRI, but if you really want to know everything, it's an EKG. And
yeah,
it's just like,
dude.
yeah, this guy does know what he's talking
I
about.
was like, that's a hard line. But, it was, when you look at Breece Hall, people are gonna say, "Oh, well, he came back, look how good he did." But, dude, Breece Hall isn't every running back, so you gotta think about that. Um, the good news is he is young, Brooks, so,
Mhm.
coming back, he has that going for him. The bad news is he hasn't played in the NFL, so the speed is different, the gameplay is different, the schemes are different. There's a lot of stuff that is not the same, even comparative to top tier college football, right? It's just a whole different level. So you could see that as a good or a bad, I guess, or a strength or weakness because he hasn't played in it. He will just come into it and have to get up there versus feeling like he was at that level and then going down and having to come back up. So mentally that definitely plays games with you. But at the end of the day, if I am a GM, owner, coach, and I'm looking at these 3 guys, it's hard for me to pull the trigger on someone who has an AC is fresh off an ACL when I have 2 other guys who are right. It'd be one thing if it was like here, right? It's like the injury doesn't brings them down a little bit and doesn't matter. There's still a huge gap. But when you got 3 guys, boom, 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 and they're pretty close, and one guy's got an injury or has, had an injury, and we don't know how he's going to come back from that yet. Not like he had an injury, came back last year, and still performed well in college. Like we don't know how well he's going to come back from it. I start to maybe lean towards the other two, personally.
I agree, and as I was kind of looking at these lines yesterday, and was like, I was like, oh, why is this guy like such a big favorite? Because Trey Benson is plus 320 at number two for second best odds, and then Corum, like I said earlier, was plus 500, and I was like, wow, that's a kind of it's a pretty big gap,
Yeah.
and especially with Brooks being minus money, I was like, I think I would at least think he'd be like plus 120 or something closer to not even. Um, and then I saw, that ACL injury, and it was in November. I went on the interweb and did some googling, and was like, "Oh man, this just doesn't sound like the best thing to me." And I was like, "Wow!" And that's when I was kind of confused that Blake Corum was third best, just because everybody saw what he did last year. He's obviously had a great 2 year stretch at Michigan, and it's just a bruiser back, and he can get the job done.
Yeah.
But it's so. I mean, I don't know now that we've kind of talked through this, I don't even know who, if I'd put any money on taking who the first running back would be. Personally, now I think it's going to be Trey Benson just because of what we've talked about and coming off an ACL, and we don't know what Brooks will look like. And I honestly like Trey Benson a lot because he was a big reason why Florida State had success last year. Obviously, Jordan Travis was the engine of that offense, but that dude, I mean, he created a lot of opportunities for Jordan Travis to use his arm from his ground game. Um, had a very similar year in terms of stats to Blake Corum and Jonathan Brooks. So I was watching a little draft night special last night with the NFL Live guys, and they were talking highly of Trey Benson as well. So maybe it's just a little recency bias of me listening to it before I fall asleep. But after looking at his numbers, I like Trey Benson. I'm not telling you to take him at plus 320 to bet for him to go as the first running back off the board. But I'd keep an eye on him and kind of see where he ends up. Maybe he could be a sneaky little fantasy pick um, in this year, late rounds. We'll see. I'm curious to see where he goes and what system he gets into. And that's a big thing, too, is, some of these running backs, it kind of depends on what kind of system they fall into, and how much experience the quarterback has, and what scheme the offensive coordinator likes to run, yada yada yada. So,
Yeah,
you know,
100%. And listen, at the end of the day, I mean, we give some bets, but we like to just give the information too, so you guys can
100%,
make your own bets.
100%.
But um,
Yeah,
it, they go through combine, they go through pro days, they get tested by MRIs, medical, all these people.
mm,
So if Jonathan Brooks is still up there, that means medical probably was like, yeah, everything seems solid,
he's good to go.
seems strong. But there's a lot that goes into it, right? I mean, working in that field, um, you can have strong ligaments, but mentally, you have to get back to that caliber of football. Physically, you have to get back to that caliber of football. Even if the ligament seems fine, you have to get all the muscles surrounding it strong again, which I have no doubt he will do. But you got to get your proprioception or your stability back. There's so many pieces to a rehab. So when we talk about that in Jonathan Brooks, that's really what we're looking at, the whole picture. And that's why, not saying he's not going to go on to be a fantastic NFL running back, just there are some question marks that I think he needs to answer first before
Mhm.
um, you go and take. Now, I don't think any of these running backs there may not be a running back taken in the whole first round. I mean,
I would be surprised.
yeah, I might be
Well, especially now, I mean,
second round.
the running back, yeah, and again, I think we talked about it in like one of the first episodes, but just how the narrative for NFL running backs has just done a full 180 in the last 2 seasons. 2 years ago, nobody wanted to pay anybody,
Yeah,
and now obviously these guys aren't getting paid astronomical numbers, but in terms of what they were, they are now. Like with Saquon and a couple of these other guys, and it's interesting to see. So that's why I'm kind of like, I don't think there will be a running back that goes in the first round, just because there is a bunch of talent, especially on the defensive end of the ball, that can go late. So I just, not to say running backs are still a dime a dozen, but they kind of are. Um, and, I don't think there's any need to not waste, but use a valuable first round pick on a guy that you could potentially get as a free agent or maybe a seventh round flyer.
Especially where the defenses have changed now with all the different rules that they've implemented, no
Yeah,
hip drop
dude.
tackles, no, all the stuff for kickoffs and stuff. If you can get a guy
Mhm.
who may be able to play even some special teams for you as well, you have to be defense like cornerback has to be the hardest freaking position on the field at this point. I just don't. It, it's crazy. I mean, the amount of quick decisions you have to make. So you have some of these guys in the draft here um, who are young and can make those quick decisions. And like you said, those are valuable draft picks in that first round. So I see a lot of them going definitely first there, at least those top tier guys. And then things might slow down a little bit.
Yeah, and just quick cornerback blurb. Do you think that white guy from Iowa, DeJean, is going to go one, or do you think it's going to be Kool Aid in terms of cornerbacks?
There's definitely some back and forth on who should go first and who will. I think um, I think Dejean, I don't Dejean. Is it Dejean?
I think
Dejean.
it's
I've heard it pronounced both ways, but I think he will go first over Kool Aid. As a Bama alum, again, I'm a little bit biased towards Kool Aid. Love, been rooting for him for a while now, but um, he he's a fantastic defensive player. Has as most players has shown at times there are a few gaps there, but obviously still first round material. But I think that after his pro day, even coming back from that injury, which is funny because we just talked about how much injuries are important. I do think Cooper will go first just after his pro day. I don't see them taking McKinstry over him. So we'll see, but I think he goes first. I think that from Iowa,
yeah.
he's gonna make that. They'll grab him. It's also a good storyline, after coming back from the injury. People love that. Puts
Right.
butts in seats.
Well, that and dude, yeah, and just like I remember when they were talking about him earlier in the year, and I was like, "What?" I'd seen him on Iowa because my family is half my family's from there, and so like I'd passively watch the Hawkeyes because they're obviously so painful to watch because they can't score a touchdown on offense as a college Division I college football program. But it is a cool storyline, and it's cool to see our fellow brethren are still holding their name in the NFL a little bit, So hopefully he has a good long career. We'll see. Um, but yeah, that's kind of it for my draft picks. I was kind of flirting. My kind of last pick to segue was kind of flirting with a Dunza of the Washington wide receiver to go at 9 to the Bears after there was that whole tweet about him and Caleb Williams being on the same flight to Detroit and yada yada yada. And I was kind of thinking about it a little bit. He was yesterday was plus 200. Now it's plus 320. So even in 12 hours of thinking about it, um, Vegas has kind of come to the conclusion I think that most people have as well that he's probably not going to go at 9 just because what did the Bears do this offseason? They got they got Keenan Allen, and they also have DJ Moore. Like, I just don't. I think the Bears need much other things than weapons on offense, at least in the wide receiver department. I think the Bears should take an offensive lineman. I think they just need to protect their future, hopefully franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams. Um, and they couldn't obviously do that last year for Justin Fields very well. So I would be shocked if Odunze goes at 9 to the Bears. I think it'd be a great storyline, and I think that's why he tweeted that out. And obviously, main uh, social outlets were tweeting that and kind of hyping it up yesterday. Um, I bought into it for a little bit, but after seeing the odds move that much in a little amount of time, I'm going to say don't take Odunze to go number 9. I'll be shocked. And also, but then again, we've known what the Chicago front office likes to do the past almost a decade, maybe arguably even more, and they're not very competent. It seems like so. Who knows? Maybe they'll just throw us a curveball and take Odunze at 9 and give Caleb Williams as many guys to throw to as he wants, and maybe it'll work. Who knows? But yeah, I'd stay away from that. It was a big topic of conversation yesterday on social media. Just wanted to bring it up because I did buy into it for a second, but Vegas more often than not knows, and those odds moving from plus 200 to plus 320 shows me that they know that he's probably not going to go at 9. So just a fair warning. I could be wrong. I'm feeling I'm not going to be, but just keep your eye out. People like to make emotional bets when they see intriguing storylines, if that makes sense. So, and I fell victim to it yesterday, and that's why I was like, I'm going to keep an eye on this. Let's not put all our eggs in one basket here, and let's actually take a step back and have some deep thought about it. So that's kind of my draft wrap up. Just give people a little warning. Maybe don't drink the Kool Aid just yet. Maybe on Kool Aid McKinstry, but not on Roma Dunza to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of mock drafts. A lot of them having him go number 9 right now to the Bears. But yeah, dude, we'll see. You never. There's going to be mix-ups too that no one saw coming. Draft changes,
Yeah,
obviously trades that
always.
happens every year. Um, I'm sure the Vikings will trade up somehow, some way. Maybe the Raiders. So there's going to be some changes, and it should be a fun draft to watch, man. At least round one, and then the subsequent rounds after that. But round one will have a lot of good players going. Should be exciting. So, but what is going on now is the NBA
Yeah.
playoffs. We are in the midst of it, of course, as we've been talking about on the show the last few episodes. Um, Things going, I would say, mostly right now as people kind of expected. A few mix-ups here and there, but most things kind of playing out as you might think now that we're in the series. But give us your thoughts. What do you got, Will?
Yeah, biggest thing. I mean, just a quick recap from last night. T Wolves beat the Suns again, so they're up 2-0. That's I'm not surprised. I thought the Suns would have a little more fight in Minnesota. They're looking weak. I mean, KD looks like KD, but I mean, his supporting cast is not giving him the support he needs. Um, Pacers are beating the Bucks. Beat the Bucks last night. Excuse me, not beating. They beat them last night by a pretty significant margin, and I love to see that just because obviously you don't like seeing Giannis be hurt, but it has made that series very interesting. And now they're going back to Indiana, tied 1-1. So it's kind of it's an interesting. That series is getting very interesting, especially because Tyrese Halliburton and the majority of that roster, besides like Pascal Siakam, don't have much or any playoff experience at all. So it's cool to see them kind of giving Milwaukee a run for their money. And I don't know if you saw yesterday, but Halliburton kind of took some shots at Milwaukee's fan base and said that they had more loud and sold out crowds during the regular season than what they saw in Milwaukee for 2 games. So that's kind of fun. There's a little noise getting conjured up in the playoffs, which is great to see. Um, and yeah, the Mavericks beat the Clippers by 3. So that series is 1-1 again too. Luca finally kind of showed up. He had 32, which was huge, and so I'm kind of hoping the Clippers take that series. The Mavericks are good. I have no beef against the Mavericks, but um, obviously they got Kawhi back last night, and they still couldn't get it done. It was a close game, 3-point game. But now we go back to excuse me, Dallas with the series tied again. So it's been good. I was kind of worried after all the home teams. I think after the first 2 days of the NBA playoffs, home teams were 14-0, or either 14-0 or 12-0 to start the playoffs, which is remarkable. Just because normally we see some upsets, and now we've kind of seen them in game 2. So, and just moving into the night, I don't think there's going to be a big upset in the first game of the night with the Heat and the Celtics. But I do think the Heat could cover the spread. It's 14.5. Boston covered game 1. The spread was a little bit smaller. I think it was 10.5 or 11.5. I purely think the Heat can cover in game 2 just because 14.5 is a lot of points. And not that the Celtics are a bad team. Obviously, they've been the best team in the NBA all year. They have the best home record in the NBA. I just purely like it because 14.5 seems egregious. So I like the Heat to cover that. and keep it not close, but I think they're still an NBA team. They're in the playoffs for a reason. Um, they let's not say they're going to lose by two, but I could see them at least keeping it close. And 14 points is enough for me to say let's ride with the Heat
It's gotta
tonight.
be due to the
Uh,
MCL injury, right?
mhm.
For Butler? I mean,
Yeah, 100%,
I would
a
think
hundred percent. I
that's
mean,
how that's the
not
reason
having him at
that's
all.
so egregious, right? I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, the Heat weren't. I would say in game one they weren't. There wasn't many moments where everybody thought they could potentially win that game outright. But the Celtics did cover the original spread of, I think, still can't remember what it was, 10, 11, or 12 or something double digits. Um, but yeah, 14 is a lot of points, and I think Miami's playing for their season. I mean, if they go down 2-0 and they got to go back to Miami, they could get swept. So again, I don't think they're going to win tonight per se, but I do think I mean, they're kind of playing their life's on the line right now in game two, and if they can even just keep it close and get some sort of momentum going back home, that could be huge for them. And who knows, maybe they catch the Celtics on a bad night. I don't think they will, given that Jason Tatum had a triple double last game and he never gets triple doubles. But yeah, I do like the Heat to cover the spread at 14 and a half. And just moving into the next one, I do like Derek White to go over 12 and a half points. He's hit that in his last 4 out of 5 games against the Heat. He obviously isn't their primary option on offense, um, but I think that Boston has thrived with how deep their bench has been all year. He's been a reliable option for them. And 12 and a half points is 13 points is not what he's even been averaging in his last 10. He's been averaging almost 16. So I like that line. I think it's a little low. I feel like Vegas might have made a mistake. Granted, he's not going to be playing 35 minutes tonight, but but he very well could actually if the Celtics, eat my words and spit them out and say we're going to just blow these guys out by 20. So who knows? But either way, I think Derek White to go over 12 and a half is I'd put that in the frisky category. I feel good about that one. So and then my last one for that first game of the night with the Heat and the Celtics, I like Caleb Barton to go over 3.5 boards. He plays, that 3-4 spot. 4 rebounds isn't anything crazy. He's a big dude. Celtics obviously have big men that can rebound with Porzingis and Al Horford, but um, he's been averaging close to 5 rebounds a game in his last 10. So I like that line again. I'd put that more in the more frisky category as well. I think the odds aren't the best either. It's like minus 145 or something. So that can also give you a good indication that Vegas feels good about him going over that line too. So is he going to get 10? Is he going to get 6 boards? Probably not, but 4 seems like a really good number. Very obtainable for sure. And again, he's going to have to be crashing the glass early and often because, like I said 2 minutes ago, the Heat are kind of playing for their lives in Game 2 tonight. So he's got to step up for sure. And definitely one way to win a game is to get more rebounds. So I like him to go over 3.5, and that's kind of my last bet for the first game tonight. And then we got another big game tonight with New Orleans in the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I don't know if you watched Game 1, but it's pretty surprising. Didn't think the Pelicans had much of a shot without Zion Williamson, and they're saying that he has a very good chance of coming back in the series if it goes long enough. But the Pelicans gave the Thunder a run for their money in Game 1, and I've been preaching it a lot these last couple of episodes. But some people like to listen, and most don't. But playoff experience matters, and the Thunder showed that in Game 1 by almost losing to the Pelicans at home as the 1 seed. So the spread tonight 7.5. I feel like a lot of people are thinking I'm going to say take the Pelicans to cover. I like the Thunder to cover. I think the Thunder are going to wake up tonight. They did look very cocky in their post game press conference. I get that that's kind of been their vibe all year, and their starting five and all those role players like to stick together, and they kind of have this gang mentality in a sense of how they act in post game, and they all have each other back. But I thought they were a little too cocky and confident for barely winning that game against a weak 8 seeded Pelicans team. But I do like the Thunder to come out swinging tonight. 8 points is a decent amount of points at home in the playoffs, but I think SGA will have a better night shooting. I think Jalen Williams will kind of get it going early. I feel like Chet will finally he's kind of seen his first little playoff action. It's only one game, but I like the Thunder to cover tonight. I think they're kind of due for a big game, especially after kind of getting scared their first one. So, um, yeah, I like the Thunder to cover that 8 points. And then just moving into the next one. Um, that being said, the big thing why the Thunder almost lost game one is because they don't have a center in the paint. They don't have a guy big enough to match up with Jonas Valanciunas. Um, this is a more of a frisky bet, along with that future draft, that plus 470, first five picks in order, as well as Brock Bowers. This one is it's plus 110. It's Valanciunas to go over 11 and a half boards. He had 20 in game one, so obviously Vegas doesn't think he's going to go that berserk again. And obviously the Thunder will make adjustments and change up some matchups to try and give him a harder time in the paint. But the Thunder don't have a big man to compete with him, and Chet Holmgren may be of a 7-footer, but he's still pretty skinny and needs to fill out a little bit, especially when you compare him to Jonas Valanciunas. So I like him to go over for some plus money, over an 11.5 boards. Again, the Pelicans don't want to go down 2-0. He's been a mismatch nightmare for them already. So I like him to go over there, especially with the plus money and the value. And then my final pick for these games, and Tyler says it at the end of every episode, but I will have all my picks for tomorrow's games in the newsletter tonight that will get released tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe to that, get everything for that. But my last pick for today's games, Lou Dort over 1.5 threes. I still don't understand why his line keeps getting set at this, for him to make 2 threes. He's hit it in his last 4 out of 5 and 7 out of 10. So I like that. The odds aren't the best. I think it's minus 150, but if to get some money in your pocket, I would take that for sure. I wouldn't call it a lock, but it's the closest thing to a lock, especially with the trade and what the trends in the data are saying. So yeah, those are my picks for the day.
There you have it. The NBA cash in your pocket picks from Willie P himself. But like Will said, make sure you subscribe to our newsletter and check out our social media, because Will's always putting on some great bets for everyone on there. Because he's just trying to make everyone rich in this economy.
Spread the love.
Spread it out. But Will, do you have anything else for the people before we end the episode, dude?
No, I hope everyone enjoys the draft. I hope if you are an NFL fan and you decide to tune in, that you that your team makes the pick that you want. I know the Denver Broncos will probably not make the pick that I want, so they'd love to just continually break my heart. And I hope someone followed me on that Denver Nuggets to win in 5. I do think I'll give you a little sneak peek into the newsletter. I do kind of have a sneaky feeling the Lakers pull out Game 3, just because they're a solid team. Obviously, their role players haven't shown up. The best environment for role players to show up is a home crowd. That's where they'll be. I think LeBron could go nuclear. He could have a 40-plus game potentially. I mean, the dude's pissed, and nobody likes a pissed off LeBron. So that Nuggets to win in 5 is tracking. It looks a little scary after the Lakers blew a 20-point lead, and we hit a buzzer beater on them. I'm not mad, but I would like the Lakers to kind of pick it up and at least get one so we can cash that bet, because there was some good value. So just keep an eye on it. Yeah, good games tonight, and hopefully people will make some money and keep tuning in.
There you go. Pats fans, we have a new draft with a new coach, so this could be interesting. Maybe not just keep trading down to, get a bunch of 6th and 7th rounders. So could be an exciting one to actually take a top 5 first round. Or we could trade down again. Who knows? But we'll be tuned in to see. But like Will, I hope everyone watches the draft and their teams pick who they want. And we will see you back here in 2 weeks for another episode of the Frisky Risky podcast.